Okay guys, this project will consist of 5 separate layers for the MIRA 7 to process: the water, building, streets, building and street names, and the front plate. And when stacked together and aligned, it will show the street map area of the Texas Longhorn football stadium that I will build later in the project. The three-dimensional stadium will be glued to the center of the piece. The stadium's bottom layer will be painted using a number of masking steps. So let me go ahead and start this project by loading the water layer into the MIRA 7. Let's go. I place a 1/8 inch piece of masked finished walnut onto the laser bed and I snug it up onto the 90-degree L jig. The L jig will play a crucial part in aligning our material to the loaded design. I close the lid and I do an autofocus to prepare for the first job. This job will score the outline of the creek using 300 speed at 15% power. When done, I remove the piece from the laser and I take it to my workbench to remove the masking from the scored area. I next grab some blue acrylic paint and I paint the creek blue. I give it 3 coats, blow drying between each coat. After it's fully dried, I place it back onto the laser bed and snug it up to the 90-degree L jig. I close the lid to the laser and I send the building layer to the MIRA 7. This job will engrave the buildings at 300 speed, 20% power. I do a quick inspection of the engraved building layer before sending the streets layer to the laser. This will engrave the streets at 275 millimeters per second at 40% power. I selected a higher power setting because I wanted a darker engrave for the streets, and the masking on the maple plywood will ensure that I have no charring. So I now load the street names into the laser. The street and building names will be scored. I grouped the names by color because I wanted the building names to score at a lower power because they will be scored on non-masked areas. I wanted to reduce the charring in those areas. The street names will score first, followed by the scoring of the buildings. And you'll see that the lower power settings on the buildings will produce a nice dark score with no charring. So all I have to do for this base layer is to cut it out. So I send the cut job to the laser and I press start to get it going. I now remove the piece and I take it to my workbench to remove the masking. I now place the base layer into an oak frame. I like the look so much better in a frame because it hides the cut edges and gives it a more clean and professional look. I place some 3M double-sided adhesive to the back of a 1/8 inch masked piece of finished sapelli plywood and I load it onto the laser bed, pushing it snug up against the 90-degree L jig. I send the top plate cut job to the laser and I press start to cut it out. I remove the top plate from the laser bed. I check to make sure that the backside double-sided adhesive lines up correctly. I take it to my workbench to do a test fit on the frame. I now begin to remove the protective backing off the double-sided adhesive and I begin to stick it down to the base. All I need to do now to finish this part of the project is to remove the masking off the sapelli plywood. The darker sapelli is a nice contrast to the light maple. And now I will put this piece aside and it's now time to work on the 3D stadium. I ended up line drawing the stadium using this satellite image and other seating charts of the stadium. I tried to do an image trace of it, but it would have taken me longer to edit the image trace than to start from scratch by hand tracing it. And here's my final light burn file for the 4 stadium levels. If you notice, there is a tool layer around each of the levels, and this tool layer happens to be the same size as the size of the material I will use to cut them out of. When these 4 layers are center aligned, they line up perfectly. So let me delete all the other layers and only show you the bottom field layer. By turning on and off different layers, I will isolate the field and just score that area. By isolating and scoring different areas, that will allow me to paint certain areas of the field with different colors. The area I'm isolating now will be painted green. So let me send this job to the laser and get started. I place a small piece of mass finished maple plywood and I place it onto the laser bed and I snug it up to the 90-degree L jig. I press start and I score the field area that I want to paint green. Upon inspection, you can see a nice score line just around the field area. I now remove the piece and I take it to the workbench. I get some fine point tweezers and I remove the masking from the field. It is now ready for paint. I get the green spray paint and I lightly spray it with only a few passes. You want the paint to be as thin as possible without it puddling up. I then blew it dry with the blow dryer until I was sure it was dry. I now remove the masking and I'm very pleased with the nice sharp edges of the painted areas. So now it's time to mask it again so that I can score and paint the areas I want to paint orange. So let me apply the masking and squeegee it down to make sure that it is flat on the surface. I now take the piece and I load it snug up against the 90-degree L jig. This jig will ensure that it keeps the alignment of the loaded image. I set the user origin to the bottom right corner of all the stadium layers. The areas I isolated this time were the two end zones and the longhorn in the center of the field. And the close-up inspection shows some nice score lines of these areas. So just like before, I will remove the masking from these areas and take the piece to the garage for paint. Once again, I lightly sprayed a few coats, making sure the paint was as thin as possible, but with good color. When done with the painting, I blew it dry with a blow dryer until I knew it was totally dry. Once again, I removed the masking to inspect the orange paint job. And wow, it looks amazing. The paint lines are really nice and sharp. So now I'll apply a final masking layer to prepare it for more scoring and this time engraving. I now load the piece back into the L jig. I isolate the yard lines and I load it into the laser to have it scored. Upon closer inspection, I'm not liking the depth of the score lines. So when done, I just rerun the score job, and this time when it does the second score, I'm happy with the look of the score job. And now I isolate the numbers and words on the field and I send this job to the laser so it can engrave these areas. So now it's time to remove the masking for the last time and take a look at the finished painted and engraved field area. Using Gorilla Tape helps remove the final pieces of masking. And I think the final paint job looks amazing. This extra work to apply the paint will make the stadium pop with the added color. I now place the material back into the laser to cut out the final shape of the bottom layer of the stadium. I now remove the base layer of the stadium and I take it to my workbench to take a better look. Now that this is done and looking good, I load another piece of masked 1/8 inch maple plywood and I begin to score and cut the second layer of the stadium. I now remove it and take it to my workbench to do a quick test fit on the bottom stadium layer. And now that this checks out, it's time to load another piece of maple plywood and cut out the remaining two levels. Now that all the levels are cut, I will do a quick dry fit before gluing all the pieces together.
Here we go.
I now get some Gorilla 2-part epoxy to glue all the pieces together. I use clamps to ensure a good bond, and after a few hours of dry time, it's holding strong and it looks great. It's now time to cut out some accent pieces out of some orange 1/8 inch acrylic so I can do the final assembly on this project. Hey guys, if you'd like more information on AEON lasers, please click on my partner link below and then click on the Contact Us button. If you found this video helpful, make sure to mention Rico Hernandez in the referral field. Or if you decide to DM or call them, tell them Rico Hernandez sent you. Please help me to get compensated so I can continue doing what I love, playing with my laser and bringing you fresh content. Well guys, I'm almost done with this project. All I have to do is stick down my acrylic pieces, followed by gluing down the 3D stadium using 2-part Gorilla Glue epoxy. Well, this pretty much is going to wrap up this project. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you saw something in it that you may want to try in your next project. Please do me a favor, like, subscribe, and share this video. My dog would greatly appreciate it. So until my next video, if it happens in my world or the MIRA 7, I will definitely make a video of it. So have a great day and God bless. Adios.